Hello. While I'm trying to figure out what book I'm reading next, there's this discussion that I had in my head, and I'm bringing it to you to see whether it's podcast worthy. Do you think these things actually happen? And do you feel like I should put together a podcast episode for it? Okay. So I'm summoning my middle class families. Middle class, please come over. Please come over. Here's this thing that happens. Do you feel, I don't want to call it black tax, because there are people who genuinely just want to help their parents. They genuinely are doing what they are doing so that they can better the quality of their parents' life. So I don't want to call it black tax, but there's almost this rule or tradition that children have to send money back home. And in the traditional way, sometimes even in some cultures, they say you have to send money back home so that your parents can bless it. Blessing in some African communities was they spit on your money or on your hands, and that means they're blessing your sources of income, which I get. I really do get. But here comes the problem. Sometimes I feel like you, as a child who was born in like a middle class family, you've gotten to a point where you're now trying to find footing. Yeah, you're working for your money, you're trying to get investments for the future, but there's this thing still at the back of your mind that you have to send money home. And why I feel like this should now be a discussion is because your parents could be stable. Your parents could still be working. Your parents could have done the best they could, and therefore in their retirement, they are still living a decent life. So they really do not need your money. But there's this sort of pressure where money needs to be sent home even if your parents don't need it. And sometimes you're sending it home when you don't even have enough. You have $1,000. You want to send home $500 every month just so you're calling it a blessing so that my parents can bless me. But don't you think it is problematic that your parents can afford their own life? They had their life to live, and now they're straining your income, or rather the resources that you require to create an investment, a future for yourself, so that at least whatever is happening is not replaying itself. Now, I need rich families to step aside a bit, because I know you're coming here with the argument of, why aren't your parents just having enough and giving you? Because that's what parents are supposed to do. They brought you here, and therefore they should provide for you even in your adulthood. They should set you up for success. Yes, we get that. But here's the thing. Middle class families might have enough, like your parents are comfortable enough to sustain themselves. They might just not have surplus to give you, and that is okay. Now, poor families, I understand that you started even fending for yourself from a very, very young age, and right now you almost feel the need to better the quality of life for your parents. It could be your family, it could be your siblings, whatever that looks like for you. I really understand. Sometimes it's black tax because the parents are entitled to it. And now here comes my problem again. You will find parents who are stable. They have their jobs. Maybe their retirement package was nice. They are comfortable. Like, they have a house to live in. They have food. They can afford certain luxuries. But they still feel like they need to act like poor parents. They still have the entitlement of getting money from their children as if they are poor parents. But they are not. They can sustain themselves, and therefore take off that burden from you, so that you and your money, you just figure out how to invest for yourself. Okay? Now, the other situation that I find very problematic in middle class families is, you remember when you are growing up and you are being told, make sure you work hard so you have your own. That is very good advice. Never forget it. Please make sure you work very hard so you always have your own. You have your options. You have your investments. Just make sure you are set for yourself. That is very good advice. But here's the thing. Some middle class families feel like, parents feel like they've worked so hard for what they have. They cannot dare hand it over to their kids who've not worked that hard. So you feel like, me, I worked all my life. You know, sometimes your parents grew up in a poor family, and so they've worked so hard to amass the property and the wealth they have. So it's gotten to a point where they're just like, now I'm supposed to give it to you for free. Hell no. And you've seen situations where someone might be on their deathbed and they do not want to write a will. They do not want to give their last wishes, just because they're like, this I worked hard for, and therefore is mine. Even if you're my children, you're my blood, you go work for yours. I think that is problematic. And why I'm assigning it to middle class families is because, as I have explained, I understand the dynamic of rich families where they have enough and they'll just like give to their kids, and poor families, which I know sometimes the kids have to work hard, and it really rests on their morality and their own values, whether they want to help their families or whether they just want to go ahead, break the cycle and live their own lives, and from there on make their generation better. So I understand the two. But middle class, I feel like there's a problem. There's a problem with values. There's a problem with just handing over. There's a problem with, like, am I the only one thinking about this? Is someone else experiencing this? Are multiple people experiencing where your parents still feel entitled to your money regardless of whether they are stable or not back at home? And in this case, they are stable, they can sustain their lives, and I feel like they should take that off your plate. You should not worry about them. They should just tell you, now you go work hard. As we have food, as we have a place to lay our heads, it's fine. You go and thrive. But it almost seems like, oh, you've not sent back money this time. Oh, you don't want to bless your parents, but you're already blessed. You should be extending that blessing to your children. That's the debate I've been having in my head, and I've been thinking, is it a common experience? Do you people have experience in this? And is it worth me putting together an episode? And I'm not locking out poor people and rich families. You could be having this experience as well. Just let me know. Your parents holding on to things and just being like, you find yours, and also being entitled to what is yours, even if they can sustain their own lives. So yeah, let me know. And hopefully next week I'll have a new book that I can recommend to you about. But for now, while you're wondering what is this I'm talking about, I do have a podcast episode. So I do have a podcast, sorry. I do have a podcast. It's called the In All Honesty Podcast. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Castbox. And yeah, just get to enjoy. I have really varied topics over there, and I know you will feel seen. I know you'll feel seen. So In All Honesty Podcast, a podcast by yours truly, Olive Orawo. So find it and tell me if this is worth an episode, okay? But for now, enjoy your Easter. Bye.